Hi everyone, we're excited to be recording with our special guest, Angelina Skowronski of Marine Stewardship Council. MSC is an international nonprofit organization whose aim is to set standards for sustainable fishing practices. They recognize and reward efforts to protect oceans and safeguard seafood supplies for the future. Angelina will be sharing her wisdom and insight about how, why, and what the blue MSC fish label means, specifically the importance of it in our pets product labels.
That's right. MSC's mission and vision is for future generations to be able to enjoy sustainably sourced seafood while combating overfishing and keeping our oceans full.
So let's get started. This is Donnie, your chief treat lady.
And I'm Dr. Amber, your official veterinarian at Vital Pet Life.
We're here to talk about pets, pet nutrition and wellness, anything that can help our fur children live a longer, vibrant, and happier lives.
All right.
Yeah. Welcome to Vital Pet Life Podcast.
Welcome, Angelina of MSC. Hi, Angelina.
Welcome to the podcast, Angelina.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Donnie and Dr. Amber. I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me to join.
We're so excited to have you in our podcast. We've been talking about MSC a lot in a lot of our episodes and why it was important for us as a company to have it. And then now finally we have somebody in MSC that can pretty much explain or educate us on what MSC really does and how it really, how important it is for our viewers or consumers to know about MSC.
Yeah. Well, thanks for giving us the opportunity.
Yeah. How did MSC or Marine Stewardship Council get started? I mean, what inspired focus in protecting our ocean?
That's a great question. So how did MSC get started? So it started actually with an upsetting event. So in 1992, the Grand Banks cod fishery in Canada collapsed. Completely, they overfished the entire species. And there was once a time where they say that you could walk across the ocean all the way to Europe on the backs of cod. So the fact that you go from that to a fishery that cannot find cod anywhere in the ocean is a big deal. And so when this happened, there was a commitment to find a solution to this. And so WWF and Unilever got together and they essentially created MSC. And the idea of MSC was to be the solution so that overfishing would never happen again. So it was registered as a nonprofit in London in 1997. And since then, we've made a lot of strides as an organization to be a part of the solution. So in 2000, it was the first MSC fishery ever certified, and that is the Western Australian rock lobster fishery, which is still certified. 2006, we got a partnership with Walmart. So Walmart made a commitment to source MSC seafood for their great value. So now actually, you go to Walmart, all great value canned tuna is actually MSC certified. You'll see the bluefish label there. 2011, we had our partnership with McDonald's. So all filet-o-fish at McDonald's is MSC certified pollock. And then finally, most recently in 2022, MSC became an indicator for the United Nations Global Diversity Framework. So a country's number of MSC fisheries and also a number of MSC chain of custody supply chain companies is an indicator in that country's commitment to protecting biodiversity. And so, and how our program works actually. So we have a fishery standard, and that's all about working with the fisheries to make them sustainable. So it's based on 3 different principles. So principle 1 is sustainability of the stock. So essentially making sure that we don't overfish all the fish out of the ocean. Principle number 2 is ecosystem impacts. So what this focuses on is making sure that the action of fishing in these environments aren't a detriment to the environment, the ecosystem that they're in. So it's reducing things like bycatch, making sure that we're not taking species and things and coral and things like that out of the ocean when we're not supposed to. Finally, principle 3 is management system. So it's ensuring that there is kind of this greater law out there to govern how you fish. And so if there's fisheries, species that cross many different borders. All of those countries are talking to each other and agreeing on management, how they manage their vessels out in the ocean, so putting closures on fisheries when it's needed. And then also making sure that there is enforcement. So when there are bad actors, are they getting punished? How are they getting punished? Things like that. So those are essentially the three tenets of the MSC fishery standard. And then we have this other thing called the MSC chain of custody standard. And so that essentially ensures that after the fish is landed and all the way until it gets to the consumer, there is an oversight of some way to ensure that if a company is using MSC product, they actually are using MSC product. And so all companies that exchange hands along the way for that MSC species and products has to be chain of custody certified.
That's amazing. It's really like from start to finish.
Really from start to finish. Absolutely.
Policing like the ingredient, like from the catch, where it handles and how it's handled and going to the bottle. Because I know that it has to be also specific to the manufacturer. They have to be like MSC certified too. Like this, the chain of custody.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. So all the, essentially every hand that product exchanges with. So it's from the fisherman to the distributor to the primary processor to, all the way through. They need to be chain of custody certified so that we know that if they say it's MSC, it actually is MSC.
I feel like the importance is really deep for MSC to be in this space, especially like for us, we experienced supply chain issues. I mentioned this to you like 2 years ago, and that was one of the things that we were worried about for the wild Alaskan salmon ingredient that we have in our bottle.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. And so the idea is that, if you're sourcing from an MSC fishery or if you're purchasing a product from an MSC fishery, that is assurance the fish is actually sustainable, and that sustainability equates to making sure that the fish isn't overfished, there's proper management, the ecosystem impacts are reduced, so things like bycatch, marine environment, the surrounding marine environment, things like that. So that's all considered when a fishery is certified.
Can you explain what bycatch mean? And not a lot of people really understand.
Yeah, that's a great question. So bycatch it's basically the fish or just anything that comes up in a fisherman's net or pull, hook or anything like that really isn't the intended catch. So as an example, and not to pick on tuna by any means, but just because tuna is a huge species that a lot of us eat, when a fishing vessel goes out into the ocean to catch tuna and they pull up in their net or in their hook, they only want tuna. That's the goal, right? Is only getting tuna. But sometimes you get things like other types of fish. You can get sharks in your net. You can unfortunately also get dolphins in your net, turtles, things like that. So those are things that you don't want, and that actually negative for the environment and for the ecosystem. And so what MSC tries to do is reduce those impacts, reduce the bycatch and also the type of bycatch. So ways to reduce that is more science and knowing where the sharks and the dolphins and the turtles and, the whales and everything that you don't want to catch, where they exist, and avoiding those areas. Other reduction is to put excluders in nets. And so there's a way for the fish that you don't want to escape, ways like management. So making sure how you manage the fishery, where they fish, times of year they fish, so that they're not interacting with breeding grounds, for species that you're not trying to get, things like that. So there's various different ways to reduce your bycatch. And so those are the things that an MSC certified fishery would be implementing to reduce bycatch.
That's amazing. So Angelina, talking about the fisheries that you mentioned, if you could disclose how many fisheries are members of MSC?
Yeah, so MSC has roughly 19% of the global marine catch by volume engaged with the MSC program. And so of the 19%, 674 fisheries are certified. And that equates to 15.3 million metric tons of seafood that is caught annually that comes in as MSC certified. And these are 674 fisheries in 66 countries. So the program is very global, almost, I want to say, every corner, everything from the Arctic to the Antarctic, Southeast Asia, US, Europe, Africa, South America. So 19% of the global marine catch is engaged with MSC. Our goal is actually 30 by 2030. Given that we've only got about 6 years to go to get that extra 11%, we have a lot of work to do. To make it successful, I have to say, answer is not necessarily just MSC. It needs to be a concerted effort amongst governments, amongst industry, amongst consumers as well. So it's great to have Vital Pet Life as a partner with us who's committed to sustainability, and you're using MSC certified and also ASC certified. I can talk about that. Seafood and omega-3 oil in your products, creating this demand. Hopefully that'll increase more fisheries to be engaged with our program.
That's my mission. I feel the same, like just having, we're on it together. Like it's not just MSC alone that can basically, you just can't reach your goal unless consumers are well educated about it. And then at the same time, like as you said, governance, like, retailers, like the people behind where we pretty much work or sell our products. Like it's very important for me. But yeah, thank you for giving us the stats, because it's really interesting. And the reason why I asked that, because I just want to see where the MSC fishery covers. And when you mentioned that it's every nook and cranny in the world, so I'm like, there's no way for consumers not to find it. Like there's always an opportunity for them to choose like buying products that are MSC certified. Yeah. And I think it comes to our second question. Like I think you mentioned this already, like when consumers see the MSC bluefish label on their product or on their seafood, when they buy it in the grocery stores, like I think you mentioned that it's pretty much like how it was caught, at the same time the fishery.
Yeah. So essentially, for your listeners out there, hopefully you've seen it before, but the MSC bluefish logo is a little blue rectangle, and it's got a fish with a check mark in it, and then it says MSC. And so hopefully you've seen it on some cans of tuna, maybe in the frozen section, the fresh section. And we're also in pet food, pet sector, and then also supplement. So really great that Vital Pet Life actually is the corner of supplement and pet. But essentially, when a consumer sees this bluefish label, they can be assured to know that the seafood product in there came from a certified sustainable fishery, that it does not harm the marine environment, our marine ecosystem, is wild caught, which differs from our sister organization, ASC, Aquaculture Stewardship Council, and they focus on farmed and aquaculture seafood. But the MSC specifically is wild caught. And then also it provides assurances to prevent mislabeling or fraud. So this is kind of another factoid, is that approximately 30% of the seafood globally is mislabeled with the incorrect species. And so a study was done, I believe, in 2019. There was a DNA study performed on 1,400 seafood products in 18 different countries around the world, all of which were MSC labeled. And they found that 99.1% of all those products were accurate to the species that was on the label. Of course, there's a 0.09 of non-accuracy. So essentially, that's what the study found. And so that is another thing that when you see the MSC bluefish label on your product, that you know that if it says it's salmon, it is actually salmon. Or if it says it's pollock or halibut or tuna, you know it is that species.
Yeah.
I have a question. So since 1992 cod fishery collapse, and 97 MSC was established, what have you guys seen in the fish population around the world since you started that?
Oh man, really, that question really hits deep. I will say that there has been an improvement on the water. That is something that we can vet for. We can say that there has been improvement, even just in how the fisheries are managed. Improvement of reducing bycatch, for instance, or improving the gear type, or making sure quota systems, for instance. So when you're looking at multilateral, a species that crosses many different boundaries, because of course fish don't have borders like we do. And so a fish might, swim across the ocean. It's getting caught by the US, it's getting caught by Japan, it's getting caught by China. And so these countries have to come to an agreement of how much fish they're going to take, because you don't want one country taking more fish than they're allotted. And so MSC has been a part of the solution to encouraging these things to happen. We'll say that climate change is something that, as much as, we want to address it and something that we want to be the solution for, there is still the chance to be the solution. But the thing is, climate change is changing so rapidly. So when you implement a management plan, or you implement you do your science data, like your data research, to ensure, like, okay, we're checking the fish. Okay, we have enough fish. And then the next year there is no more fish. And it happens so quickly that the science, the management can't catch up, because what's happening under the ocean is evolving so quickly and changing. So that's something that is also just in general, and again, like, it's not just MSC, but it's the management, it's governments, it's scientists. We're all trying to catch up on to be on top of it. But again, you don't know what's going on underneath the water. You don't see it, and so it's only your best guess.
Okay, so you mentioned ASC a while ago, and I think it kind of aligns with the next question. Can you explain to our listeners what ocean-raised seafood is and its benefits for our consumer in the ocean? I mean, ocean-raised, is that the same as wild caught or something like that?
Yeah. So what's interesting is I haven't really heard the term ocean raised as much, but I don't doubt that it's out there. But I've heard more of aquaculture or farmed. So essentially it's all the same thing. So a farmed fish, an aquaculture fish, or an ocean raised fish. And, they happen in different ways. So you can have fish that are raised in pens out in the ocean. You can have fish or crustaceans raised in tanks on land. Many different ways of how aquaculture is performed. And so our sister organization at MSC is ASC, very similar acronym. So Aquaculture Stewardship Council. So it's a similar label. It's the sea green label for them. When you find that in the grocery stores, you can be assured that it's certified sustainable. But what they really focus on is trying to ensure aquaculture system is sustainable. So things that they look at is feed. So the feed going into the fish, is it sustainably sourced? The operation itself. So if it's in operation in the ocean, so I guess that could be like ocean raised. What are the impacts of those pens and the farmed fish in that marine environment? Or are the pens breaking and there's escapement, things like that? They can also look at workers. So that's another thing they're focused on, in that the workers in the community the operations are in. So is it affecting, is there wastewater that's affecting the community? That kind of stuff. So I would say when it comes to their standard, they're looking at, because aquaculture is more of like an entire business, because you're raising the fish essentially from brood all the way to maturity. Their standard covers the entire business of the farming of the fish.
Okay, so are there benefits?
So yeah, the benefits for both the consumer and the ocean is that, you have to kind of look at it on like a larger scale. I know that there's a lot of consumers out there who have farmed is bad. And I will completely admit that I came from that place as well. I used to think that farmed is bad, but there's been huge strides in the industry to make it better. And I think ASC has been a part of that solution. You have to look at it as like a big picture kind of thing. The amount of people we have on this planet, there simply is not enough wild seafood in the ocean to support the demand for protein. There's not enough cows on land or chicken or pork or anything. And so when you look at seafood, it truly is the lowest carbon footprint protein we have. We can't take it all out of the ocean because it just won't be sustainable. So what are we going to do? So really, aquaculture is the answer to this of supplying the world enough low carbon protein. It's not that aquaculture is bad, farm fish is bad. It's just making sure that you're doing it right. So ASC really does, I would say it's the gold standard when it comes to ensuring that your aquaculture is done right, so that it's consideration of the environment, consideration of actually the fish that they're raising, to have no antibiotics, things like that. And so it's the benefits for the consumer is that knowing that you're eating a clean product, and also knowing that it's not harming the ocean.
I think this is very important. People really think farm or ocean raised fish is pretty much like, it has antibiotics, it's injected with color. But having ASC behind it, or also like the sister company of MSC, as you said, it's the gold standard. It's a huge benefit to it. Everybody should know.
I'm thinking back to one of our earlier, either a podcast or just a conversation that we had about farmed versus wild caught. And And Angelina, I was totally like, farmed is bad. In my mind, I think about, because obviously I'm not a fish vet, but I think about factory farming with cows and pigs and chickens and how they're fed antibiotics, they're fed grains, which they wouldn't normally eat at those amounts. They're highly concentrated, so they tend to be sicker. They're not as healthy. And so in my mind, I kind of translated that to fish, like, oh, it's got to be the same way, where there's, more toxins. They're giving them medicines and antibiotics to try to keep them healthy in this highly concentrated environment.
Yeah.
Finally, based on the recent GlobeScan Healthy and Sustainable Living Survey, how important are transparency and sourcing for pet parents when they're buying pet food containing fish or seafood?
Yeah. So we just received the results from the GlobeScan Healthy and Sustainable Living Survey specific for pet parents. And so this is a survey conducted globally, over 30,000 consumers. What we found from the U.S. consumers specifically, so it was a sample size of about 1,000 consumers, looking at pet parents and what are their habits, how do they shop for their pets, and also comparing that to how they shop for themselves. So what was actually quite interesting is that both dog and cat owners are slightly more than the general public to have purchased an environmentally friendly product in the past month. So that's going to say that, pet parents, and I will say I am a pet parent, so I am a part of this demographic. So I might have a little bit of a skew on this, but I'm always, when I'm going to buy treats and things like that for my dog, I'm always looking at the sustainability factor. And when it's not just like the food, I would say also the toys, because she shreds through the toys, and I know it's going to end up in the garbage, in a landfill, in the ocean. So I'm always looking for, is it biodegradable, like a rope, or is it coming from recycled material? Things like that. So that was really interesting to see from the survey, is essentially that pet owners, and we're looking at specifically dog and cat, they're more often to buy environmentally friendly products. In addition, when it comes to their purchase motivators, after the primary purchase motivators of like price and health and easy preparation, preferred brand, taste, things like that, your generic, like these are the core, like the core that you're looking for. Sustainably sourced products or environmentally friendly products was the next purchase motivator. So this is particularly higher for dog owners than with cat owners, which I thought was interesting. That was a really cool thing to see. Also comparing it to just like the general public in a way. Of course, again, there's the primary. It's the price. It's the taste. Does my dog like it? Things like that. Or does my family like it? Health. But having sustainably sourced pretty high up there, close after all of those purchase motivators, was a great thing.
That's amazing. I feel it's like a new way of consumerism. Like we need to be more responsible in where we put our money in. You were just talking about the pet owners, especially dogs and cat owners, part of this demographic. I'm like, oh yeah, of course. I always look for a compostable poop bag.
Yeah.
Yeah. That alone, just thinking about, so
there we go.
Totally. So at least this, our fur babies are also trying to help us like save the planet. Making us like change our like shopping habits for them, or lifestyle too. If you are conscious and you're conscious in your animals, like it just goes both ways.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. I will say specifically when it comes to seafood ingredient, because when you have like treat or whatever, you can have everything from bison I've seen to wild turkey, all the different things. But when it specifically comes to seafood ingredient in pet food, actually what's quite interesting is roughly 13.5% of the global seafood capture goes to pet food.
Oh, wow.
This can be in the form of fish meal. So when you have fish meal, it's essentially many different species ground up to create this meal. Cereal, I guess you could say, a cereal of seafood. And that can go into like, pâtés for your cat, or like an ingredient into kibble for your dog or something like that. And so oftentimes when you have this fish meal, it's many different species kind of coming together and getting mixed. So oftentimes you don't actually know what the species are. And many times when you look on an ingredient list, it'll say whitefish or fish. Like, they can get away with just saying fish as well on the ingredient list. And so what's really great is when you do have a certified product, such as if it's MSC, touting MSC again, you're going to know that it's it is what it says it is. It's going to say tuna, it's going to say salmon, it's going to say pollock, things like that. Or if it does say whitefish, I will say there are a few MSC certified products that will say whitefish. You actually do know it actually is whitefish and not a conglomerate of other types of fish. That's something also to consider when you're shopping for your
because
fur
especially
babies.
in the industry, I mean, I love the whole circularity of it too, not just like sustainable. Because like I learned from our supplier telling us not also good. Like when people started using the meal, right, this like ground up byproduct of what we buy or what we eat as humans. Like, I mean, our oil is pretty much circular in the sense we're using the head or the bones or like the skin that are not used for the fillet, but we know that it's processed properly, and we basically harvest the oil and put it in our bottle because it still has a lot high concentrate of omega-3s, like the eyes for one. Like not a lot of people here in the US eat eyes. It has a lot of nutrients, and it goes to our oil and also for pet food. Some products too that are pretty much in the pet food space that carry salmon meal or like fish meal, and I think some of them are MSC certified. Am I correct? Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you so much, Angelina. This is such a varied, like my brain is just like, oh my God, like I have a lot of questions, a lot of information. And I hope that we're getting the right dibs for our listeners.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. It was really fun. And, to be honest, I could probably talk for a lot longer about fish because I know a lot about it. And so thanks for letting me steal, 20, 30 minutes of your time to tell your listeners about all the wonderful things about seafood.
Especially MSC and what you guys are actually doing. So my main takeaway, guys, like, since we know that every nook and cranny has a fishery that's MSC certified, always look for the blue label when you're in a grocery store. Like you can see it everywhere, maybe on fish area, not the produce area, sorry. But yeah, always look for the blue label.
Well, thank you so much, Angelina, for coming and teaching us about MSC certification. And I think, if you've been listening to our podcast or you've been buying our products for any amount of time, you know how important sustainability and transparency is. And so now even when I'm shopping, I'm going to look for the MSC and ASC certification on products so that I can have assurances that this is sourced in a sustainable way.
And it's clean too.
Yeah.
Like other than I always like, oh, is it clean? Like, yeah. Having ASC and MSC behind us, like, it's very important for us. Thank you once again, Angelina, for joining us and being our episode's special guest. That's it for today's episode. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to follow our channel for more talks about pets, tips, and the latest news and advice from Dr. Amber.
Happiness, vibrance, and longevity for our pets and our planet.
This is Donnie, your Chief Treat Lady at Vital Pet Life.
And this is Dr. Amber, your official veterinarian at Vital Pet Life. Remember, the MSC Bluefish label is important for you and your fur baby. Until next time.
Yay!
We did it.
I don't know if this tidbit can go into the podcast, but we have a huge 64-ounce bottle of Vital Pet Life at our house that's like constantly next to the dog bowl. And my dog refuses to eat her kibble unless we unless we pump your fish oil into her dish, and she refuses to eat it unless she gets like the fish sprinkles. And so to the point where my husband calls it salmon sprinkles. And so he's like, oh, you got to put on the fish.
Oh, that is
sprinkles.
awesome.
That's amazing.
You did it. Thanks, guys.